So yesterday we were talking about the lucid dreaming, and by
Yeah,
the way,
we wanna
we're
fi-
on now. So
Yeah, I want to
we're good
finish
go.
talking about the lucid dreaming topic. I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, I actually had, I don't know if there's residual effect. What I did was these lucid dream sites you could do online. If you tap in just lucid dreams or you Google lucid dreams, this couple of things pop up, and one of them is by a woman whose voice literally lulls me to sleep within a minute or two. There's a gentleman that does it also, and his voice is another one that's really, same type of thing. You'll fall right out. But I was very skeptical about these dreams because the idea of a lucid dream is while you're dreaming, there's a part of you that actually realizes that you are dreaming and you could see into it.
Right.
So I had this dream yesterday that I told you about. I'm not going to go back into it, but it was a dream where I actually was like semi-conscious. I don't know if I was hypnotized or whatever, but I'm skeptical of that stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, this was but anyway, after I had that dream, I wanted to do it again today, and I figured I'm going to start doing these lucid dreams every night, get myself
So
a
you're
good
gonna
night's sleep.
practice lucid dreaming?
Yeah, just to try to get a good night's sleep, because I'll tell you, when you do dream, at least for me, I felt completely rested the next day. I only dreamt for about 2 hours or so, but when I woke up in the morning, I probably got a total of about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I felt like I slept 8 hours. I felt great.
Wow.
So today, I woke up around 5, and I said, I really don't have to be up for another hour, so I'm going to kind of lay here and just ponder what's going on for the day.
Right.
And I ended up falling back asleep. And I had another one of those dreams where it couldn't have lasted more than 40 minutes, but I actually felt myself dreaming. And I woke up, and I couldn't quite tell if I was in the dream, if I was out of the dream. But anyway, I'm just wondering if there's like a carryover effect of these sites.
This morning I was interesting. At like 6:15 in the morning, there was just a crack of thunder and a bright flash that was not, when like thunder cracks and it's white?
Sure.
This was yellow. So I felt
the
like
lightning was
the
yellow?
lightning that came through the light in my windows was yellow. I've never I was looking it up. I think it means that it's much closer than and like the noise like really just shot right through the,
Yep.
And it was just weird. I was having a strange dream and bang, thunder like that. And then I heard my electric go on and off. And I went, oh no, not again.
That's all you need for people.
Isaiah was like, if you put on like the local news and everything, there was like a little old man on there this morning, and he was like ranting and raving about how bad the power outages were, and it didn't seem like there was.
Absolutely. I mean, there's people. We have relatives that actually their power just went on yesterday.
Right.
And this is basically a week after the storm happened, and this was a storm. I don't think we got hit directly with the full force of the storm.
They said that we got hit with the wisps of wind on the right-hand side of the.
There would have been some major catastrophe here if we got hit with the actual storm, because the wisps knocked power out in some areas, and this is 2020.
Did you lose power where you were at?
I lost power from the day that it hit till approximately 12:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So, not a full day, but my aunt lost power for a full week, and that whole area around her was down for about a week, and the amount at this point, I just these trees, I think they're putting up higher power lines in some areas so that they're not affected by the trees.
Yeah.
But I mean, it gets to a point where and as technology improves, you can't find a solution to deal with trees.
Why do people feel that they get no response from these like large power companies?
Well, I think you got a couple of issues. Number one is everybody's calling the same power company.
Right.
So this idea that monopolies were done away with, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody's aware that they still exist, and calling our local energy company or electric company, everybody the amount of calls they were getting, it more or less shut down their system. But I think they are getting responses. The problem is that it was such a mass outage in a short period of time, and I don't think they were really expecting it to be quite that bad. So
neither were they for Sandy.
What's that?
Neither were they for any storm that's passed.
No, Sandy, they were contracting people from out of state. You know, the people that worked on the power lines were on Long Island. People that worked on the power lines by our house were from Pennsylvania, right. Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody was kind of clapping as these guys rolled down the street like they were returning heroes. But that was about 2 weeks that the power was out. I mean, that was pretty.
You
pretty
forget
intense.
how fragile we are without power. It's
you become you become like a baby. You know, you're basically
I had
helpless.
electricity and I did not have internet. I lost electricity for a day.
Right.
The electricity came back, and then I was stuck here with lights but no internet. So no cable, no phone. Just like the texts I was able to get through and cell service.
So it's back to reading books and stuff like that, basically.
Right.
You know, that's the one time that you see people who are real tech savvy kind of, you know, the argument is always, you know, you're one of the people that rightfully so are on top of me to get with the times, and, you know, whether I become savvy with technology or not, it will roll on regardless. So I kind of, unfortunately, like I told you in the past, when everybody got cell phones, I got a beeper.
Right.
When everybody got better cell phones, I got a flip-top phone.
Yep.
So people were always, you know, kind of on top of me to improve my capabilities. But honestly, nowadays, with the amount of times and the amount of the duration that the power goes out,
right.
you got to have some sort of fallback to occupy yourself. Because if you don't have internet and you don't have, you know, cable and everything else for 10 days,
right, in the midst of COVID,
you blow your brains out. There's nothing to do. You know, it's already bad enough with the quarantine. But
what I did was I just sat outside all day. I didn't even, you know, sat in the wind. I watched the storm. It was pretty nice.
You're limited. And
at one point I went outside. My neighbor was across the street. I've never seen the guy before, and he was just he kind of saw me, and we saw each other. He like nodded at me, and we were both like standing in the storm together, like observing. You know, we were the only two people out of their house.
Yeah, my brother was a big storm chaser back in the day. He would, whenever there was a storm hitting, and I guess he was doing this back in the 80s, he would get some type of, advanced warning or whatever. He had something set up on some type of rudimentary home computer system, and he would figure out what was coming as far as weather patterns, and he'd be able to hit the storms, and he was always into it. And now he's certified to fly those drones.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, course.
So now he's able to really track everything.
It's nice because he has instant access to the best weather advisories.
Sure.
Through NOAA and all that. And
he knows.
really,
you know, he's able to really to detect things. But he's been into it since he was a kid. And I mean, it was funny during Sandy. Your mother and I we really, just like a lot of families are bonding now during this COVID.
Right.
We really spent a lot of time just hanging out and, just having discussions and conversations and you bond.
Lots happened. A lot's changed.
Yeah, a lot has changed. But
really
back during Sandy, we and it was funny because we didn't have cell phones, and it was the first time in a long time that it was just us sitting, hanging out like we did when we were kids before any of this forced time of cell phones.
It got me thinking back to the blackout that happened in 2003.
That's another time. Yep.
And it was funny on Facebook. A couple friends of mine were like, someone made a post about it, and somebody was like, "Oh man, I remember I was here doing this with these people."
Yep.
And I thought about what I was doing that day. I spent a lot of time playing Monopoly.
Yep.
Sitting on some chairs in the front yard, and everybody else was just. That was a serious...
you're basically going back to what it was to be a kid in the 80s, except you're in the dark. Right. We had lights, I mean, we had TV, but...
Refrigeration.
Right, but certain things. But as far as, like, a lot of kids were playing outside during the day. They were doing...
Games.
Yeah, a lot of board games, like you said. I mean, these were things that we did that, kids riding bikes. I mean, you don't see that as much anymore. But back during the time that we had the blackout and during Sandy, it seemed like, but
definitely though, after COVID, I definitely saw way more kids riding their bikes than ever before.
Yeah,
it was considerable.
Yeah.
It was nice actually. It was like,
COVID, a lot of them were doing it against the, what they were told, because everybody was supposed to be inside, and group activities were
right.
kind of looked down upon, and a lot of kids were still. I saw them riding bikes also. They were still outside, but at any rate, yeah, I think that with the amount of times that we've lost power in, say, the last 10 years. I just can't fathom that they haven't come up with something as far as the trees go, because that is the issue. We lose power. It's not necessarily the wind blowing the power lines. It's these trees. And if you pass the power lines in this area,
it's crazy.
Covered with trees.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's going to happen again and again. Apparently, west of here, towards Huntington, New York, there's some power lines that have gone on. Apparently, there are eyesores also. They're extremely high, but it does reduce the damage that could be done by trees. So I don't know if they're actually looking to build higher or they're looking to go underground with everything.
I wonder if people who have solar panels on their roof, how that helps them.
Good question. Depends if they're 100% solar or if they're operating on some sort of...
Well, it usually seems like the power companies leech your power
sure.
and then give you back
some of
that power to power your house.
Sure.
So you don't ultimately, I don't think, have control.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I don't have any. The furthest I go with solar is a solar calculator I had in high school. I mean, I don't really.
You're not a solar guy?
I'm not operating under solar. No, not yet. Not yet. But I see a lot more people in the neighborhood are getting those tiles on their roofs and everything. So.
And now they're starting to make them where they look good.
Yeah, they do. They do. There's a guy down the block that had one that actually couldn't tell if it was a roof or if it was the actual panels going in for the solar, and I figured it out when the truck rolled by and said solar,
cool.
and but yeah, but it
cool.
is, yeah. So I think that is a something to look at, because I mean this was just my aunt losing power for a week for something that was just, but any rate, yeah. So that's done and over. I guess everybody's got power back on Long Island now, right?
15,000 people still without power. It's supposed to be that they're coming back today. And then within the hour after that thunderstorm, they added another 3,000 who don't have priority. They still got to handle the original 15.
The original people from that. And
before they can handle today's outages from the thunderstorm. Very fragile.
Well, that is, society in general is very
fragile.
And we're seeing it more and more now with the between the COVID, between the riots that went on, society, it's almost like to reach the point we've reached, it is, it's teetering, you really, any change of any sort could knock everything off its equilibrium, and then we're all plunged back into, the dark ages. It's very, it's scary to think of, because, you build up all this stuff, you acquire all of these goods, and life, you feel like life is stable. And all of a sudden you have some sort of incident, and within a snap of a finger it could be taken from you.
Well, it's Wednesday, 12th of August.
Okay.
Kamala Harris was selected by Joe Biden to be his running mate.
Well, I got to tell you, prior to this, and I think anybody with half a brain in their head had to figure that Biden was going to pick a woman of color to run alongside him in this race.
Yeah.
I think it was his only option as far as a running mate. So just the question was who he was going to choose, so he ended up choosing Kamala Harris. I will say this, for all the things I have against Kamala Harris, she's extremely accomplished. The woman is, without a doubt, hard worker, without a doubt. Her credentials lend her to, lend to the job. She is
Bill
extremely
de Blasio
accomplished.
is a hard worker as well.
Well,
it depends.
So is the guy, digging graves in a graveyard.
Right.
Hard worker doesn't mean anything, but her accomplishments are, her career already as a prosecutor speak for themselves, and speaks for itself, and she's, but there's a lot of issues. First of all, when you're reading in the paper that I mean, I remember watching the Super Bowl with the Washington Redskins, okay?
Yeah.
That Doug Williams, who happened to be a black quarterback, was the quarterback of the Washington Redskins. And I don't remember the year. I want to say it was 87, but I'm probably off by a year or two.
Yep.
But during that year, Doug Williams was the quarterback for the Redskins during the Super Bowl. He took over for the quarterback, I believe, who got injured. I want to say it was Mark Rippon, but I don't know for sure. Can't remember exactly who. But at any rate, I remember as a kid the television over and over and over. Between the announcer and the blurb running across the screen. Doug Williams is the first African-American quarterback to play in a Super Bowl. So now this is going back 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, 30 years in the future, the first headline I read about Kamala Harris is the first black Indian woman to run for office.
Right.
And it's like, when are we in this country going to get away from the first blurb about this accomplished woman who has had an amazing career? Whether you like her or not, you can't argue with the fact that she's had an incredible career as a prosecutor, as a politician. When are we going to get away from the fact that this is a woman of color, that this is a woman of Indian descent, and just list her credentials? And that just shows further, the problem with this country and the problem with a lot of the jobs and a lot of the issues that arise are people are really chosen based on things that have nothing to do with their actual skill at the job or their qualifications. It's it's to fill quotas. It's based on the on color, color of skin. And I mean, as I said, I was watching the Super Bowl 30 years ago, and instead of talking about the statistics that Doug Williams was putting up, which were amazing that day, that's how come they won. They just kept highlighting the fact that he was an African American. And the first question when they interviewed him, instead of saying, how does it feel to win the Super Bowl, was, how does it feel to be an African American winning the Super Bowl?
Well, online there's like lists of demands from Black Lives Matter. I think I might have given you an article on that.
Okay. List of demands from Black Lives Matter.
The autonomous zone, and also there's a list of demands somewhere in there for Black Lives Matter.
And what are these demands about? What are they for?
Well, a lot of people say this and that about, this is what's officially posted.
Okay.
About Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
So
Let's hear this.
I'm gonna pull it up here now.
Yeah, shoot. I'd like to hear this. Now, is this their demands from the government, or is this their...
All right, so this is... All right, you type in list of demands from Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
The first thing that pops up on Google is a pre-prescribed little paragraph, and it reads, divestment from the institutions that criminalize, cage, and harm black people, and investment in the education, health, and safety of black people. Invest, divest, or divest. Economic justice for all, and a reconstruction of the economy to ensure our communities have collective ownership, not merely access.
Right. And what's the relation to that with Kamala Harris? What is the...
Well, she was another one of those people who didn't have one thing to say when the movement turned violent.
Yeah, you know what's interesting?
I mean, it's not really an opinion. These people are now just standing with them, trying to...
Well, what's interesting about her is that she I don't like to take a personal opinion of these people as far as whether I'd like to spend time with these people or not. I just care that they're able to do the job. Mm-hmm. That's my first care and only care, is that this person in a time of a crisis, in a time of prosperity, can manage that prosperity. Yep. Can they do the job? And let's at the time of inauguration day, Joe Biden will be 78. So there's a chance, and especially if you listen to some of his recent interviews and speeches.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to kind of jib-jab with you, she might be in a better state to be the president than Joe Biden.
Well, that was my next thing, was that she may actually, we're looking at him as the president, her as the vice president.
Who looks better?
It could be very quickly that her, that we're looking at her as the president. So that's something that, again, that you want to now we have to start looking deeper into this woman and seeing what,
right,
and what decisions she made, what things she chased as a prosecutor, and what her positions were on all these cases. And again, I mentioned before that Kamala was a person of Jamaican descent. Her father was Jamaican, and her mother was Tamil Indian, which is just a region in India. It's a group of people that within that region. So she's half Indian, half black.
Which is great. Doesn't matter,
To me, it's neither here nor there.
Right.
But
that's all the articles read.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it really, to me, I could care less whether she was green as long as she could do the job. But
well, like we were saying before, that merit system is skewed now based on the political correct system, I guess it would be.
Well, so let's get that out of the way first. She's a black/Indian woman. So you got three things there. She's a woman, she's black, and she's Indian. So right there, Biden really knocked a few things off the ledge as far as the first time in history. Right. So she's a kind of a no-brainer pick from that aspect. Looking at some of her time in office as a prosecutor, she was already, and this is keeping in with the fact that she didn't seem to back police with the riots that were taking place. In fact, she was kind of taking the opposite. There was a case involving the death penalty against somebody who killed a police officer.
Yep.
And she fought against that person receiving the death penalty. So she was also shunned by the police union in California for many years after that. So she's already had friction with police. So if I'm going to have somebody coming into office in this day and age,
yep,
I think somebody who is an adversary of police is not, that's not going to lend itself to creating a climate for change. In fact, it's going to probably lead to worse problems than we have already. So I think right then and there, looking at her qualifications to work with police officers, I think that's something that has to be taken into consideration.
Right.
Something else I find interesting about her is when she would ask, when she was in Congress and she'd be asking questions to whoever was being tried in front of the Senate or the Congress, she had a style that was that of a prosecutor. She basically would fire away questions. She would do it in a style that was designed to make the person on the stand nervous, and she would really kind of look to knock that person off their game. And I guess it's her job as a prosecutor, but what I found interesting was when she was in office as a prosecutor, the office was seen as very sloppy. There were a lot of times that prosecutors underneath her went and argued cases where they had, for instance, false testimonies were used, evidence was tampered with, a bunch of cocaine that they had in, for testimony that they were supposed to keep guard of, made its way out of.
Just walked off.
Yeah, and so rather, people were questioning that, and rather than answering those questions or kind of putting her neck out there, she basically tried to hide it or just cover it. So, it's
so much, as is the case for so many of her colleagues and fellow, it's kind of like the story of Andrew Cuomo. Everybody connected to that guy was in trouble. But somewhere along the way, he found his way through.
Yeah.
And he...
Well,
he stands.
We're all imperfect people, and the first time I ever heard of Cuomo was I was a teenager, and his divorce was very public. He was married, I believe, to somebody in the news, a newscaster of some sort or something. He was married to somebody famous back in the 80s, and they had a public falling out, and that was the first time I had ever heard of him. So. At any rate, we now have him as the governor of this great state in New York, and it's almost like he's running a mafia family. Like when he's sending out orders to people to if they don't.
Kerry Kennedy.
Kerry Kennedy. So he was married to somebody in the Kennedy family. Okay. Yeah, I just remember his case being extremely...
Brilliant political strategy.
Yeah. Well, you marry into that family, it's a slam dunk. I mean,
yep.
Work for Schwarzenegger, work for... you affiliate yourself with the Kennedys, you're
royalty.
You're royalty in America. But... yeah, so she, but anyway, with Cuomo, he's another one. He's one of these politicians that, they're barking out orders. They're, anybody that doesn't go, agree with their way. And I see this with Kamala. I see it during her interviews, and I see it with Cuomo. Very little room for any opposition to their philosophy. When I watch him sit down, or I watch her sit down with the other side, I almost see the anger, or somebody should kind of counsel them on the type of facial reactions they should have, because it's almost like I cringe watching them argue the cases against people or argue for their point of view. But
I think they really are taking a page from AOC's book. That's what she does,
Yeah.
She's very facial.
Yeah, well, that's another one who, some of her statements, or you wonder if she's playing with a full deck. But so anyway, Kamala is chosen.
Well, the people need bread.
What?
The people need bread. That's her argument. They need bread.
Yeah.
So.
Well, she, I think that, in her point of view, any reason to cause disorder is justified, and
right.
It's almost you just. I scratch my head, and then and I wonder, how is it that somebody like this gets elected? And then you look at the constituents.
I think the reason also that I'm going into this little tangent here is because these are the people who are going to be supporting her.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
These are the people who are going to be in the Oval Office every day. And
which scares me.
Right.
Which scares me, because now all the people that I've watched, and Cuomo. The people in the Hamptons better follow what I say, or we're gonna close them down. It's like,
right.
Look, I knew when all this took place with COVID, I knew that there was going to be a wait and see approach.
Yep.
It was just there's that time period where you first hear about it to when they actually take a course of action, and nobody would have reacted to this perfectly. But I think that the reaction that Cuomo displayed during it is, anyway, from my point of view, was very. It was like ham-fisted almost. Like he kind of, small businesses. Oh well, anybody trying to support your family, and instead of giving people the opportunity to do the right thing, he automatically took the approach that they wouldn't do the right thing, and as Democrats do. The government needs to tell you how to live, and you're going to follow our way, and we're going to give you handouts. And that's the philosophy in a nutshell. But
there's been a lot of talk of really ramping up protests prior to this election.
Well, that I could promise you that's going to take place. Ramping them up against who? In favor of Kamala and against Trump,
just,
or Black Lives Matter,
a little bit of the same old, just these they're all different groups, and they all have different kind of demands. Some of them are communists, some of them are claiming to be anti-fascist, some of them are Black Lives Matter.
Right.
But they all meet up. There's always this congregation in these major cities,
sure.
And also in D.C. There was the president had to leave a speech because there's a shooting right outside of the room he was in the other day,
Yeah.
And they're vowing, these groups, they have Twitters, they have whatever.
Yeah.
I can post the sources, but
sure.
They're,
Well, these groups,
If Trump wins, right?
Yep.
What are they going to do? Are they, it's like...
What do you think they're going to do? If you could... I
feel like what's going to happen is there's going to be a game of finger pointing. You're not the president. No, you're not the president. No one. They're both going to.
Well, so you think that the election
no
is
matter
gonna,
who wins,
right.
They're going to pretty much just say this is not right. These are mail-in ballot. They're going. Both sides are going to play that coin.
Well, at the end of the day, though, when the election takes place and the popular vote is counted, and then the Electoral College comes in, makes their, the votes are collected from the Electoral College, and the president is picked, that's the president.
Right.
So at the end of the day, they could point, that's going to, look, there's been finger pointing in elections ever since elections took place. There's always going to be
this one I
claims
feel might
of
be
tampering.
The most hypercharged.
Well, the problem now is technology.
Yeah.
The ability to tamper with elections it's never been this high. So that's something that could very well take place. The problem I see with Trump winning, which I pray he does win, not because I love Trump, let's get that out of the way, but because I think
we have two choices.
Yeah, and I think he is the better choice.
And so does a lot of people.
Well, yeah.
Thank God for that as well.
Yes, thank God for that. And, of course, people who do support him are like the silent majority.
Yep.
And you're listening to the minority of people against him because they control the press, they control,
I always enjoy seeing all the diverse groups, too, that actually like Trump.
There's
so
you'd
many.
be surprised.
Oh, my God.
You'd be surprised. That's why I encourage people who are on the fence. Take a look at Trump supporters. The left is always going to paint a picture of a Trump supporter.
They're going to whitewash
as
everything.
being a white.
Right.
Well, yeah, they're going to paint him as being a white supremacist or an uneducated hillbilly. Look, there's a lot of blacks that support Trump. A lot of blacks.
A lot of gays.
A lot of gays support Trump. There's a lot of women who support Trump.
And a lot of foreigners.
And a lot of foreigners support Trump, which, again, they're trying, the left will always highlight his anti-immigration stance as being so harsh.
I'm going to tell you, this is a good one. I took an Uber a few months back, and the driver, I believe, was from Tibet. Or,
okay.
One of those countries that are pretty close to China anyway.
Yep.
And me and him just started getting into a conversation in the car about politics out of nowhere. It just happens, right? And he said, listen, the best thing that you guys have over here is the fact that you have a president who is outspoken against China.
Right. Well,
he was like, being from where I'm from.
Sure.
We live in the shadow of all their evil ways. Not the Chinese people, the Chinese Communist government.
Yep.
This is never a reflection on the people of any society, right?
And that foreign policy that's a great point.
This guy was like almost in tears. This was like a ride from here to Smithtown.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was like almost in tears. And he said, it's the best thing you have going. He's like, any president you're going to get besides this guy is not going to be as hard-lined on China.
Sure.
And it's easy to get sidetracked with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to also want to appease.
Yep.
And, Trump's not perfect, and I'm not really,
Well, that's...
He's been beating the same drum.
Sure.
Since day one, right?
Well, the problem right now is, I think, when you're a first-term president and you're shooting to get in the second term, and that's when things really take place for a two-term president is the second term, because the goal is to make sure that you are a two-term president. Mm-hmm. And his hands are kind of tied right now because if he makes a move either way, too harsh either way, then he's automatic. The press will pick it apart. Yeah. The left will pick that apart. And he knows that. He's not stupid. So he's trying to kind of toe the line right now. But that is a huge part of the presidency is the foreign policy. And it's very easy to read in the paper that the blunders the president does. But there is somebody from the country of Tibet or one of the other countries, like you said, surrounding China, who have a problem with China and who have atrocities in their country caused by China. And
I just got a kick out of the Hong Kong protests because they were all wearing American shirts.
Sure.
And they all had American flags. And at the very same time, in Seattle, you had the total opposite of burning Bibles. Which I'm not particularly like an organized religion guy, but still I think it's disrespectful. You shouldn't be doing that. And wielding communist hammer and sickle flags.
Yep.
So you have the people who are actually living
this is
there.
our young in this country. It's scary.
Oh, no, there's a lot of old people, too.
No, it's...
it's amazing that you see as much diversity as there is on the Trump side. I mean, obviously the other side's quite
Well, I think by and large, the people that were I mean, I was at one of the protests. 90% of the people were young, but there are people that are older against.
Who are rooting these kids on.
Absolutely.
And it gives them this sense
absolutely.
of, well, yeah, you know.
Yeah, and you know, but I think the foreign policy issue is a huge issue, and I think that we need, you know, dealing with China at this day and age is something that you know, that country is lined up to basically roll over the rest of the world. I mean, China economically, you know, militarily.
We could probably get into I think we should do this for an episode, is get into a wormhole of
down
all
China.
Chinese accomplishments, we'll call them.
Okay.
For, you know,
Sure.
because I think that the people, that's something you don't see.
Yeah.
I think it would be really easy to pull up a lot of information about that, because there's so much we could say.
Well, absolutely. China's, you know, the especially now, you know, that we've entered into this information age and stuff, you know, China's influence in the United States has never been this high. No. So yeah, I'd be down to do an episode like, you know, on China.
Just
sure.
I think that,
sure,
that would, you know.
But I do think that, you know, this is the fact now that Kamala is in the race with Biden. First of all, it's going to liven up the debates,
right?
And I think that
how will Pence match
I'd
up
like
with
to
her?
see her and Trump in a debate rather than her and Pence or Trump and Biden. I really wish I could see Kamala and Trump go at it, because I think that
would be a nice match.
Yeah, because I go. It's like Celebrity Deathmatch that they used to have on MTV.
Yeah. I think we should bring that back.
Yeah, I used to watch. You know, I often go back and I'll watch the Hillary Trump debates, and
my favorite thing that Trump ever said was and I'd rather be honest.
Yeah.
When the commentator asked him, you know, have you called like women pigs and dogs and this and that, and he said only Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah.
And he was so quick.
Yeah.
And
quick,
no, he meant it.
Honest.
Right.
Honest.
I respect the honesty.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he
other guys will talk.
He owes up to it.
Right. Yeah.
He owes up to
from
it.
That.
Look, there's no question that you know, Trump is what he is. Yep. I mean, this guy, like I said, he was like this back in the 80s.
And across the board, it's acknowledged he has cojones.
He has what?
Cojones. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Everyone knows that. And I think that was a big part of why people were so concerned about him to begin with, was there was this like nail biting of, what is he going to do? What is he going to do? He's so unpredictable. But honestly, he hasn't done anything he's been right on schedule with everything.
There's a whole anti-masculine movement in this country as it is. And
toxic masculinity.
Yeah, and that you know, so having somebody, an alpha male like Trump in office.
Anybody with balls, they're not going to really want to, you know.
Yeah, and that's, you know,
well,
right.
What's that about, though? Where does that come from?
Honestly, it's been going on in this country since the you know, the sexual revolution and everything else in the country. I mean, it's been this move to look. You know, there's no question about it. You know, women having equality and everything. Everybody's equal. They should have equal opportunity in the job market. The pay for male and female should be the same.
Right. How's your resume?
Myself personally, would I like to watch a male basketball game or a female basketball game? I'll watch the male one, because at the end of the day, I just feel the skill level is higher.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean,
there are women that I would get out on the basketball court with, and they would destroy. You know, they would destroy me.
And in the boxing ring, for that.
Yeah,
matter.
There's no question about that. But when I look at something or I watch something, I don't want to see my next door neighbor acting in a movie that I just paid $10 for. I want to see somebody who's a good actor acting. You know, I don't want to see Joe down the block starring in Titanic. I want to see Leonardo
see the
DiCaprio.
Picture for the Long Island Ducks on the stand on the mound at Yankee Stadium.
Right.
You know?
So that's. You know, but I think there's this movement in this country to kind of, any sharp edge that there is, it's like a movement to dull, whether it be kids that are excelling in sports, whether it be, you know, so that everybody needs a trophy, everybody won. I mean, that's not.
You know, I was reading.
Why? Why do we have that? You know,
online there's a quote. Kamala Harris it's one of her favorites. It says, let me pull it up.
Yeah.
I don't want to botch it.
Yep.
But apparently it goes back to her mother. It's an old statement,
Sure.
she would say.
I remember trying to make the soccer team as a kid, and I wanted to get on the travel team, and I had to try out, and some kids did not make it. And you know what?
Well, this quote is exactly on that, but it's like it's along the lines of like, you know, even if you're not first, as long as you don't come in last, it's not bad. You know, like that's like I was reading it last night.
If that's who's running my country,
right,
then I have some major issues with that, because first of all, look, that is widespread in every aspect now of society. You're seeing this, and it's not, you know, like we talked about before. The majority of people in this country
yep,
feel that something like that is not correct. So I mean, I know when we're speaking, there's going to be haters. There's going to be people that go against this, but I also know that there are more people that feel the way we feel about it. And those are the people I'm speaking to. And if you don't like it or you don't like what we have to say, peace, don't care.
Here's the quote. This is Kamala Harris says, "My mother had a saying, Kamala, you may be the first to do many things, but make sure you're not the last." Well, I interpret that like, you know, just kind of mosey around and do things.
Right.
You know, well, that's not the attitude this country needs now, though. No,
and you know, but that's the thing. That plays right into. That's going to play right into the hands of the left. I mean, I
have a good page up right now.
You're not seeing, when you look at the protests and you look at these people, even the people running Black Lives Matter. You're not seeing the best and the brightest. You're not seeing the best America has to offer. In fact, you're seeing exactly what Kamala's saying. Some middle of the road, lower end person. You're not seeing people that are, qualified to do much of anything except raise hell. So
you know,
and like I said, the majority of people, you know, feel that way. Look, if one of you guys, one of my kids, I have 5 children, if one of my kids was playing a sport and they didn't win, their team didn't win, I don't need them being told by the coach or by somebody else, "You did a great job, you won." Tell the kid he played hard. If the kid played hard, he played hard. Right. But you didn't win. Somebody was better than you. So you know what? You go back to the drawing board, you work harder, you try harder, you come back and you fight another day. It's not a battle, it's a war. So, you know, you might have lost the battle, but you didn't lose the war. And you come back and you fight another day. But this nonsense that they preach to kids and they preach to society that, you know, the reward is in the effort. You know, baloney.
Right.
Baloney. And you'll never get ahead in this world if you settle for that. And that's why Democrats love you. And that's why the liberals love you. And that's why you're probably liberal if you feel that way.
Well, you've been continuously screwed your whole life through Democrat policies in New York. I mean, and that's something we tried to do a few test videos before this one.
Sure.
And we sat down and we really were like kind of chipping away at that. And I know we haven't brought that up, but now that we're in it, I would like to just say though, you know,
what did I do? What did I do when I got screwed over by a particular job? And I'll be glad to explain that. Did I bury my head in the sand, or did I find another way to get around the wall?
Well,
you find another way.
You know, I wonder, 10 more years of Democrat policy in New York, in southern New York especially, that's where we're at. I mean, people don't really know anything about us, but we're based in, we're in Long Island, New York. Yeah. And we're kind of in the shadows of New York City, and it's either the Atlantic Ocean on one side, or you have to get through New York City on the other side.
Yeah,
and it's like a disaster. It's a total disaster these days, and
I don't even recognize the city. I really don't. I don't even recognize it.
We live
culturally.
Here, and I think there's a lot of people around this country who are genuinely curious.
Yeah.
What is the climate like in New York right now? What does it feel like?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the big move is people are leaving.
Yeah.
People are getting out of here.
Yeah.
And it's like I now know personally several people.
Sure. Yeah.
I know more people who are leaving New York than I know had COVID personally. I'm just saying.
Good point. Good point.
That's a fact. I'm not making that up.
No, a lot of people are moving, and what's happening is the places that they're moving, since they're coming from the hotbed of COVID activity
Texas,
in New York,
yeah.
are like, hey, wait before you come down, But yeah, absolutely. Look, the wonderful things that New York used to offer, such as like economically, you want to, like what my father used to tell me, you want to be in the city if you want to make money, which is why he worked in Manhattan.
Right.
Because back in the day, if you want to work for the big companies and you want to make the money, you got to travel into the city. Now
Right.
things can be done remotely. You could be sitting in the middle of a houseboat with your computer and make money.
It's pretty amazing that now, like, I think we were talking about this last night, too. People figured out through COVID, A, I don't need that office space. B, I need 3/4
Right.
less staff to accomplish the same things that they can do
Yep.
working from home anywhere in the country.
Yep.
Technology's made that
Yeah.
possible now. You could live in California and have a New York job.
Sure.
I
Sure.
mean, it's not out of the, so
Yep. Yeah, as long as you can communicate, and as long as you can access information, which you certainly can with computers and everything else, there's no reason that you can't operate a business from outside of New York City. I mean, there's a few exceptions, I realize that, but back in the day, you had to travel into the city. It was the hub of financial activity. It's
and what a city it was back then.
And what a city it was back then, for sure. I mean, it was a, look, any city, any area that has a large population density is gonna have its issues, without a doubt, and New York City always has. But you're not seeing the types of issues that are cropping up today are just it's a joke. One thing
He's
I'll
turning
say,
all these buildings that are now empty into homeless encampments.
well, yeah, De Blasio is.
I mean, this isn't, and this is just a fact. This
Sure.
is what's happening.
Yeah, well,
I mean, and these people, it's going to spread worse because you're going to have
that's
people.
my number one problem with New York is its mayor.
Right. Yeah.
So the guy heading the city is the number one issue I have with New York.
How many people are aware that Bill de Blasio is not his name? Because I always thought of myself to be like well up on these types. I was totally caught off guard when you told me that was not
I believe
his name.
his last name is Wilhelm or
Werner Wilhelm, something like that.
Yeah, the third or something. Yeah, it's and he.
Where the hell do they get these guys?
You,
I'm being serious.
I feel like there's some.
I can't believe
place.
that at one point that guy was like a university student and like someone took him serious.
Yeah,
for his first
anti-American.
job.
Yep. Typical schlep. Anti-American comes in. Yep. And
in the world I come from, a little bit about me, as you know, I'm a chef, right?
Yep.
And if that guy walked into the kitchen and was like, "Hi, I'm here,"
Yeah.
it's not fair,
Right.
He would have been out the door. We would have said, "Listen, Bill, or Werner, we're going in a different direction."
Yeah. Well, he's perfect for politics. He's perfect.
But the people of New York voted him in.
Which is my second problem with New York is the actual people within the city.
Constituency.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the people in New York and you look at the what's, of course of course they're going to vote for this guy. I mean, it's not everybody, but New York City is what it is, and that's it's Democrat, and it's gonna vote for a guy like that. But I knew right away when he was look.
I call him the principal of clown school. That's I really don't care. I'll say how I see it.
Yeah, well,
and all of his cronies in New York and California are in the graduating class. And that I've been doing that on Instagram for a while. I get pictures of these guys with some of their like brain-busting quotes.
I feel like there's an island where they like breed these guys to become politicians in the big cities.
Yeah.
And they cart them over here. They stamp them almost like Ellis Island. Okay, Mr. Wilhelm, your name is now Rick de Blasio. That's going to engage you with the Italians. Look, I don't care what anybody says. His family, which whatever, he married a black woman, and
that's all gravy to me.
All gravy to me.
No problem.
But he definitely, when he was using the family as a way to gain votes, which
is sociopathic. I think it's absolutely insane to make a plan with someone and say, look, I'm going to marry you and have kids with you, but I'm going to weaponize you
I don't know if it went that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to.
Well, I mean, they're with him with every major political thing that he does.
Yeah, he definitely.
When they put Black Lives Matter murals in front of Trump Tower.
Yeah.
I mean, his daughter got arrested.
Yeah.
I mean, what did she have to be doing, Bill de Blasio's daughter, to be pulled off the streets, even if it was for 5 minutes? She had to have been doing something. And, you know, at one point, like, there was thousands.
Those mugshots of her were pretty telling. And again, I don't like to see any young person. She's not a child, though.
Right.
How is she was pushing 30, I believe.
Well, that's the other
or 25,
side to the thing now is like you're a kid when you're 30.
Yeah, I know.
You live at home until you're 30. You live at home with mommy and daddy. And it's like you have no concept of reality at that point.
Right.
And I'm 27. You're 46, right?
Right.
So people around me, I'm still one of the only people who has my own apartment.
Sure.
Unless, these other people had dorms, whatever the case.
Yeah.
Some of them are still in school.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, if you're getting that degree,
Look, my parents always put, your grandparents, they always pushed me to get out. Not get out, but, find a career, go to school, find a career, and start your life. They weren't like, live at home till you're 45, and then if you find something you feel that you like, do it. And, they wanted me to start a life. So, so I believe she was pushing 30. But, I mean, the way he was upset. Well, as the father, he's upset because of the pictures that were posted of her, and he wants them taken down or whatever. Look, the child was completely disrespectful to the state and to the country, and I'd be upset if I was the mayor and my daughter was acting like that. He's supporting his daughter. Enough with this. Have to support your kid because it's my kid. Baloney. If you were doing that as my son,
right?
What would I do? You
wouldn't want to hear about it, that's for sure.
Right. And if you were young living under my roof,
I wouldn't be living there.
Right. And I think.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that these people get indoctrinated through the education system, and
sure,
that's something else we were talking about.
That's another episode that we're going to tackle. Is the overhaul in this country shouldn't be necessarily law enforcement. That should be looked at and adjusted, no question. But the complete overhaul that needs to take place in America is the education system, starting from elementary school on up through the universities. In America, we have a major issue, and it's with education.
Right.
So that will be probably more than one episode.
That's just the reoccurring theme.
It's a reoccurring theme for a long time. Schools in America used to be wonderful. They used to, churn out the best and the brightest. Now, you got to basically walk in with a pulse, and you're graduating.
Well,
it's only going to get worse with the quarantine.
We're almost up on this election, and one of the main things is I'm just encouraging people to vote.
Absolutely.
Vote.
Absolutely.
Vote.
Yep.
And vote.
And that's the problem in this election. There's still people that they know are going to vote for Trump, and obviously there's people that are going to vote for Biden. But people, I think there's a general feeling, a lot of people that were expecting certain things out of Trump, now it's not like they're going to switch over and vote for Biden. Right. They're just not going to vote.
No.
And you can't. First of all, you got to give Trump that second term to do what he was going to do. To do what a president who has 2 terms should do, which is to get some policies passed and stuff.
The amount of misinformation that circles around this guy is ridiculous, by the way.
Yes.
I had someone over here a few months ago, let's say like a month ago.
Right.
And she was a real activist type.
Right.
And it was a couple friends, but we were just having this particular conversation.
Sure.
She had no idea that Trump had met with Kim Jong-un. And she said, really? She almost didn't believe it.
Right.
I had to pull up, whatever. And she was, struggling to admit that, wow, that's a very interesting thing. It, almost like she turned green. And it's like, these are accolades that you can't run from.
No.
Who's done that?
No.
Dennis Rodman. Right,
it.
Who's a creative guy.
Yeah. And all power to him for doing it.
100%. He deserves more credit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Dennis Rodman deserves credit as a diplomat.
Yeah.
He did something major.
He absolutely did. And unfortunately,
he opened the door for Donald.
Yes, he did. And
through sports, and that's
that's what sports can be when you do it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, and the media tried to ruin Dennis Rodman at first.
Of course.
He was crying.
He was a media darling when he was running around acting
Doing
like a lunatic in the
psychotic
90s,
stuff,
right?
right,
But
yeah.
the second he does something that
Make a
might
difference.
actually help,
Right.
you know, they tried to ruin him. And that's, you know, in today's day and age, if you look at mainstream media and you believe what you're reading,
Yep.
or you don't look further than that to try to formulate your own opinion, you're a moron.
You're just in a trap.
End of story.
You're in a trap.
You're end of the story. You're a moron.
You have to look at everything, and you have to
Yes.
make your own opinions. And at the end of the day,
Yep.
none of us are seeing what's happening behind closed doors.
No, none of us.
And
none of us are seeing it.
It's really difficult to give, there's just a lot of smoke and mirrors
Well-
these days, and there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. So we're going to be here, though, right, to definitely give our feedback on
Yeah,
it.
as
We
the-
look forward to hearing from everybody.
Yeah, as the election nears, it's going to form, topics are just going to pop up left and right for us. We're kind of in a lull because when we first had the idea to do this, the riots and the Floyd riots and the subsequent riots, which basically had nothing to do with George Floyd, were hot, and it would have been a nice, topic for us to tackle.
Well,
we
to
could
be
still,
honest, it's still
yeah,
hot.
we're gonna
They're
still
not covering it anymore because
Right.
they don't want to
Well, yeah.
give it any credit.
Right.
Because now the VP's been selected.
right.
And
There's
now
a
everything's
lull
been
right
hush.
now. Right. There's a lull in the activity right now. So, but now that the choice is in, and now now the sides, you're going to start to see the sides clearly forming, and people are going to start to go to their respective teams. The topics are just going to basically show themselves, and we're going to tackle all those topics on here. We're going to get more and more engaged with our viewers. We want questions. We want to get some feedback from you. And any types of questions you have or any types of topics you're interested in,
Drop a comment.
Drop a comment. We'll be glad to tackle them for you. And as I said, the goal right now is to just get a little foothold in there. And as time goes on, the topics are going to basically, they're going to be laid out right in front of us, and we're going to
There's
tackle
a
them.
lot of different stuff going on in the world. And also, science is at an all-time high as far as what's happening
Sure.
in space. I think I have an article there
Love
for
it.
you from
Love it. Space is one of my
SpaceX.
main interests, and we're living in a time. Elon Musk is another guy that doesn't get enough credit for the things he does, and we're gonna tackle some of his accomplishments. We're gonna also.
He's a strange, character.
He is.
He's
a
almost like
strange character.
cyborgian. Yeah, it's amazing. He's we have a lot to
intelligence
talk
is-
about
we
with
do.
Elon. He's really
we do.
a futuristic character.
Yep. And
So-
we have,
But that's why it's the Future History Podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. We're going to be back tomorrow, and we'll keep you posted on everything. And remember, stay active.
look for us daily. We plan on shooting for an episode a day minimum.
Yep.
And we will be formulating our points of view much more clearly as time goes on. As I said, the idea in the beginning is to just touch base with our viewership, and we will, like I said, be on daily, and we look forward to interacting.
Sometimes it's nice to have a lull.
Yeah, well, that's
Sometimes
it.
it's nice
Let's
to get a
just
little
kinda
reprieve.
kick
We
around
can actually be
ideas.
happy for-
Yeah, exactly. We could bullshit a little bit back and forth. I agree.
So anyway, that's it for today, guys, and we'll be seeing you guys tomorrow. So you all take care.
Ciao.
And thank you for stopping by. Ciao for now.